What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? This is your review for Queen Sugar, season 4, episode 3. Now, look, the acting. Oh my gosh! You know a good actor or actress when you can, they can convey a feeling in a look. They don't have to say a word. And this happened a couple of times in this episode from a couple of different characters. So let's just start from the beginning and work our way back. We start this episode off with Vi. Vi done stayed up all night reading that book, even though Hollywood done told her not to. She's upset. She's tired. She says she's been calling Nova. Nova won't pick up the phone. Hollywood said, because of course she ain't gonna pick up the phone. She can't face what she did. Um, they get to the diner, and Hollywood and the other waitress, they go in the back to get some supplies and stuff. And she hears somebody at the door. She don't even look up. She's busy. She taking care. She getting ready to open up for the day. And she said, "Go and take a seat, baby. I'll be right with you. You know how Vi does." He said, "Oh, okay, no problem." And the first time he said something, it didn't quite click. But then he said, "It's been a long time," or something to that effect. Baby, that look, that pause, you could see the exact second that she recognized that voice. She turned around and looked up and saw Jimmy Dale, and she fainted. I mean, she fainted. And so the next thing we see is and he catches her. Next thing we see is Hollywood giving her some orange juice, her kind of coming to, and Jimmy Dale says, "Let me go get another towel." And his little coward ass gonna slink out the door while they still busy, because of course, you know, I don't think he was quite ready for the show that, right? So then we see Micah. Micah's reading his book from his aunt. And, Charlie said, look, she sees him reading the book, and I guess she figured, hey, ain't no need. She looked like, and again, she looked like she was shocked, because I don't know if she knew that Nova gave him that book. And her face was sort of registered shock when she first saw him reading the book. And then she said, look, when I get home tonight, let's talk. Because at this point, it's out. You done read the book, and if you ain't done with the book by now, you will be done with the book by the time I get home from work. So let's talk about it. And he said, Ma, I knew Dad had done what he was accused of doing, but I didn't know you helped cover it up. She said, Mike, I did it for you. I did it for us. I did it for the family. And of course, Micah being young and dumb and seeing things only through his own mindset, he's judging. And you can see it in his face that he's judging his mother. And she said, Micah, she said, trust me, it's more to it than you know. Books don't always tell the whole story. He said, but this was written by somebody I trust. And she said, so what you're saying, you don't trust me? And, he's like, I've just come to the conclusion that me and you we just see things differently. We just have a different view of the world. And Micah is just that at that age where he just think he know more than his mama. He don't understand. His mother's just some bougie queen that handles things, that throws her money around. She don't know how to get down in the gutter and get grimy. He think he done something because he done went toe to toe, you know what I mean, with the police and got into a couple of fights here and there. He don't really understand that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and that in this world, sometimes moving softly and carrying a big stick is a little more forceful than being a lion and tearing up a room. But anyway, he gonna figure it out. And again, you can tell Charlie's hurt by it, but she just kind of moves on with it. We see Nova getting ready for the day. And see, here's the problem. Every time Nova gets knocked down from the family, every time the family deals her a blow, she gets validation somewhere else, and it justifies in her mind what it is that she did. So, like last week, when Ralph Angel came and confronted her, then she had the glam squad come in and do the photo shoot and tell her she was the second coming. You know what I'm saying? And then, Charlie comes and knocks her down. And the first thing we see this scene is she got a wonderful review from the New York Times. Her book is beautiful. They think her book is the second coming of The Color Purple. And then we see that she gets on a panel with some families who had a pre-screen, I mean, not a pre-screening, that's a movie, who were able to read an advanced copy of the book. And they're telling her how much her book helped her heal. And, how were you and your sister able to deal with this? And see, she ain't telling them that her and her sister ain't speaking that. Her sister done disowned her. She's talking about, well, I realized I just had to open up that junk drawer and just deal with what was in it. And she's giving them this whole deep philosophical answer. But again, it's giving her validation to say, yeah, see, my book is helping people. So I made the right decision. See, the New York Times bestseller thinks my book is wonderful. So it's giving her validation, and she's losing sight of who she's hurting in the process. Because again, there's no justification for what Nova has done. None. But we'll get there. We'll keep moving. Ralph Angel has a good conversation with Mr. Prosper. He opens up to Mr. Prosper. He lets Mr. Prosper know about the situation with Blue and it being in the book and how he's not Blue's daddy. Mr. Prosper said, okay. He said, that don't mean nothing. He said, my daddy wasn't my daddy. And I didn't know until high school. And when I found out, it didn't change nothing. It didn't change one bit how I felt about that man because I know who raised me. I know who was my father. And Ralph Angel was like, really? And you could see these are the conversations that Ralph Angel is missing by his dad not being there. And I'm really glad to see that Mr. Prosper is sort of jumping in the mix a little bit because that's what he needed to hear. He really needed that conversation. And Aunt Vi couldn't have talked to him that way. You know what I'm saying? Even Hollywood couldn't have had that conversation with him because Hollywood don't have no kids. So I love the fact that Mr. Prosper was like, look, that don't mean nothing. You know, basically Blue know what side his bread is buttered on, and he'll figure it out, and y'all will get through it, and it's okay. He said, and when y'all are ready to have the conversation, y'all sit down with Blue and y'all will talk to him and y'all explain it to him, and then it's gonna be all right. And again, I think that really helped Ralph Angel. And then we see one of his workers come in from the field saying, basically, he told him in Spanish, somebody's sick. So Ralph Angel has to go handle it, and he calls Charlie a little bit later on. I think him and Charlie were supposed to hook up and do something. He said, I'm not gonna be able to make it. One of the workers got sick, and he can't go to a doctor because he's undocumented. I ain't gonna say illegal. He's an undocumented worker. And rewind. I'm sorry. When Aunt Vi finally came to, she remembered why she passed out, and she told Hollywood to take her home. I'm sorry, I forgot about that part. And that's important. The reason why, because that's important that they get back to the house. So, um, Charlie tells him, she said, look, I think I might have somebody that might be able to help. And and I'm going a little bit out of order here, but y'all will be all right. Um, we see Charlie meeting up with her little Latin lover. Um, she sent him to go look out for the worker. And again, this is important because I foresee a little bit of trouble in paradise with Charlie and her Latin lover because he made a comment about, yeah, he was okay. I could tell that Ralph Angel takes care of his workers. I've seen worse. And Charlie was like, what you mean? He said, well, I've heard some stories about how some of these people treat their workers. Last year, a few years back, two migrant workers were killed in a storm because the crops were more important. Their employer thought the crops were more important in their life, and that storm was coming, and they didn't pull them out the field. And we know that was Charlie. And so you saw Charlie get a little uncomfortable when he brought that up. And I'm like, okay, see, at some point he gonna find out who it was because they wouldn't have thrown it out there. You see what I'm saying? I felt like that was some foreshadowing that there might be a little thundercloud up ahead because see, that'll be something he told her last week, I'm not gonna judge you on your past, but I don't know. That might be something he might judge. But anyway, so but they end up having a nice lunch, and he tells her he really would like to do more as far as starting a clinic. She says, look, I got some space. And so it looks like he's going to maybe start a clinic for the workers who either can't go to the doctor because they're undocumented or don't have the money to go to the doctor because they don't have insurance or good enough insurance or whatever. So at least for the time being, that looks like it's still a good little thing going on between the two of them. Um, Hollywood and they vibe back at the house. And Vi says, Hollywood said, look, she's throwing up and everything. Hollywood said, look, Vi, what's going on? He said, something you're not telling me. He's so in tune with her. You know what I mean? He's so in tune with her. He said, something, what's going on with you? She said that was Jimmy Dale was at the diner. He said, who? Jimmy Dale. And she described him. He said, Oh, that's the little, oh, he tried to fake like he was a good Samaritan or something. Oh, okay. And immediately Hollywood gets on the phone. He calls back up to the diner. He tells the lady, the young lady that works for them, he said, look, you see that guy come through there? He described him and said, if he come through there again, you call me. And, if I said, Hollywood, don't get caught up in his mess. You know, it ain't nothing but a bunch of mess. You know, he just going to egg you. Don't get caught up. Don't let yourself get caught up. Hollywood was like, don't worry about it. I'm good. But I'm going to handle this. I said, oh. And it's funny because all through my comments last week, that's what everybody kept talking about, how he don't want to mess with Hollywood. And I was agreeing with y'all every single time. I was like, amen. And Hollywood, Hollywood will kill for his. And I believe, and I don't even mean that to be facetious. I mean, Hollywood will kill for his. So in the meantime and in between time, Charlie done picked up on some. She realized that she's being pushed out of this whole board situation, this deal she done made with the Landrys. Remember, she kind of sold her soul to the devil last year and all that good stuff. And now they're having board meetings and without her. And she said, well, wait a minute, I can't go to the board meeting, but why he get to go to the board meeting talking about the son? Because me and him got the same amount of shares. And he said, well, we done changed the rules of the board that I can show up with a proxy. And basically they done changed the rules so all the family members can be at these board meetings. And she said, okay, well, what's going on? Because now all of a sudden your aunt, now she pushing me out. She came to me with this great sweetheart deal. Now all of a sudden I can't get her on the phone. What's going on? And he said, look, Charlie, people, you might have stopped that jail, but you ain't stopped no show. They just figuring out another way to do it. He said, and I can't tell you no more than that. She said, what you mean you can't tell me no more? He said, look, I'm just letting you know, watch your back. You know. She said, well, where's your auntie? Where is she? He said, well, she's down in DC, you know, politicking and lobbying for us. And then she found out that they done bought a whole bunch of land up. She said, what is going on? He said, look, I can't tell you. He said, I don't even know everything that's going on. He said, but that if I could, I would. That, but I'm trying to give you some heads up. And she's kind of throwing like, well, why should I trust you? He said, well, after all of this time, I would think that you would know that you could trust me. She was like, I can't trust nobody, especially y'all. And so they kind of go back and forth, but he really cares about Charlie. I don't know, I don't know if it's a trophy situation or if he really does care about her, but he does care about Charlie. And I think that if Charlie would have given him the time of day, I ain't gonna say it would work out because I don't think it would. But I mean, I think that maybe he would side with Charlie and maybe help Charlie take over. But I don't know. I can't say that because he's sort of the black sheep of the family, so to speak. But he does really care about Charlie. Um, excuse me. So back over to the diner. Hollywood's up at the diner, and Jimmy Dale done had a nerve to walk back up in the diner. He probably thought he could get Vi by herself, and he didn't realize that Hollywood knew he was because he had slinked out the door. Hollywood was like, "Let me talk to you, player." Hollywood gave him the old stale. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're here, but I know you ain't here for nothing good. So I'm gonna tell you now, get your shit, get out of town, or I'm gonna have to give you the beatdown part two that Ernest gave you. Remember that? And as soon as he said Ernest's name, Jimmy Dale's face fell. His whole face dropped. He said, yeah, He was like, so I don't know why you're here, but you're not gonna bother with Vi. So with that being said, get your shit and get out of town. And he followed him to the county line, but y'all know all he did was double back. I knew he doubled back when he said because he told Vi later on, I handled it. I said what I had to say, and he left town. Vi was like, he did what? Because see, Vi know him. Vi said he did what? He said, yeah, I followed him all the way to the county line. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, and he went to the next exit and turned his ass around and came back. He ain't come all that way to get run out of town. Like that. Mm-hmm. But I said he just gonna have to figure. He just trying to figure out a way to be a little more strategic about it. But yeah, and we'll get to that. So then we see Ralph Angela went out on a date with Joie's mom. I don't know why I can't remember that baby's name. I'm thinking they only said her name like once or twice. But they're having a good time and they're a little flirty. And you can see that he makes mention of them talking on the phone and things like that. So you can see they're progressing a little bit. And then Ross he said, look, he said, in my past, I done made some mistakes I had to pay for. And this is what I love about her. She said, I know. And he kind of looked at her and she said, look, she said, old habits die hard. She said, in my line of work, being a single mom dating with a young daughter, you can't be too cautious. And Ralph Angel looked at her and he said, I can respect that. See, Boom. Because that makes sense. Because hell, I Google everybody I go out on a date with. Ugh. And if I had access to a criminal database, you think I wouldn't check it every time? So, and she said that. She said, look, he said, I can respect that. She said, but what I also know in my line of work, I also know that what you see on paper is not who people are. And she said, I'm liking the person that I'm getting to know. And so they went on about their date, and you could kind of see a weight had been lifted. A weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. Because how do you tell somebody something like that? When you get to dating, at what point do you tell somebody, at what point do you get to that part? Anyway, um, Micah and his girlfriend, oh, what the baby name? Because I like her too. She ain't speaking to him because she's still mad about how he tried to play Incredible Hulk down with beating up the white boys. And she said, look, I don't have time for this drama. I can't be around it. I don't want no parts of it. That's not how I handle my business. And he said, look, I'm Kiki, that's it. He said, look, I'm sorry. He said, I'm not gonna sit here and promise that it'll never happen again, but I can promise that I'll work on it. He was like, you're right. I do have a lot of anger. So they make up or whatever for the time being. Because see, I don't think this is the last time Michael gonna act a fool, and I don't think it's gonna be. But Kiki seems like the kind of person that ain't gonna be with so many times. So they get to the house. They hanging out at the house, and Micah opens up the mail. He's got a death threat. Kiki tells him to call the police. He was like, "What the police gonna do?" So he goes to tell his mother. His mother's in the office. He goes to tell his mother. She gives him the letter. She reads it. She has no expression. She says, "Okay, I'll handle it." And he just kind of like whatever. And she was like, Micah, why is it that lately it just seems like we can't do anything? Like I can't do anything right by you. And you know what I said earlier? He said that we just two different people. I think it was at that point he said we just two different people. She was like, okay, hold on. So she opened up the drawer, and it's about 5 letters. And she told him when every letter came, she said, this letter right here, this came the day after you gave your little speech. Remember that speech that went viral that everybody was loving? Mm-hmm. And you see this one? This letter came, right before I sent you away to Paris. And remember when I sent you on that all expense paid vacation to Paris this summer? That was to get your ass out of town because I was worried about you. Oh, and you had a secret detail following you all summer. You didn't know that, did you? Oh, and you see this letter right here? This letter came the day you got back. Yeah, uh-huh. She said, so please, what you got to do is you have to trust me. I may not, again, like I said earlier, I walk softly and I carry a big stick, but please don't think that I'm not looking out for you. Please don't think that I'm not taking care of you. That's my job. I am your mother. I need you to trust me. And again, you sort of see Micah again realize, damn. She was like, you ain't need to know all this was going on. I was handling it. I got this. And it ain't gonna last long because again, Micah is still a hothead. But I think for a moment, for a little I said millisecond, millisecond. I was going to start doing a milli. Anyway, for a little millisecond, you saw that Micah kind of got it. And she was like, look, I know I don't handle things the way, out here fighting and shit, but I got it. And that's always been Charlie's style. Charlie, that ain't Charlie. Charlie don't, and he's right when he said that me and you are different about how we handle things. That's true, but one doesn't mean it's bad. So anyway, Ralph Angel finally has the conversation with Darla. And remember, Ralph Angel, and they said it again, tells Darla that Nova put in the book about Blue. And of course, Darla is like, are you kidding me? Like, she reacts the way you expect her to react. And she said, is that, did she put anything else in there about us, about our relationship? He said, I don't know. I ain't read much further than that. Which again, remember, she put that whole piece in there about Hollywood finding her strung out with Blue half dead and her turning tricks in the trailer. So they don't even know about none of that. And again, I go back to what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. Nova, that ain't your story to tell. But anyway, so they in for a rude awakening when they finally do get to the whole book, if and when that happens. Okay. All right, now we get to the juice and potatoes. I say juice and potatoes, meat and potatoes. This is one of the parts where I said at the beginning when I was saying you could just see in somebody's face So, Aunt Vi's at the house. She feeling a little bit better. She cooking and stuff. She hears somebody at the door. She thinks it's Hollywood. She said, "Oh, he's gonna be so happy. I made him some chicken pot pie." She opens up the door. It's Jimmy Dale, and again she freezes. She freezes. And he's talking to her through the screen, and he's sweet talking, and oh, I've been missing you. How you doing? It's good to see you. He said, "Why don't you open this door and let me get a good look at you?" And my first instinct was, why don't you open up that damn door? But if you look at her face, she's petrified. And she fell into old habits, which was, I'm scared of this man and I'm going to do what he tells me to do. Like, you saw it. You saw her fall. You almost saw her fall back 20 years, right? So she opened the door and let him in. And of course, the first instinct was, why she let that man in that damn house? But she's scared. Like, you can see it in her face that she's scared. So he's talking to her, he's asking her questions, and she ain't answering him. And you heard his tone. He said, "Vi, I'm talking to you." And again, you saw her whole body tense up. Like, you just saw it. You saw it. She was afraid of this man. And then he said something that triggered her. And you saw her start building up her strength again and power again. And she said, "This is not your house, this is my house." And then he starts talking about Hollywood. Who's this? That young boy who calls himself Hollywood. That ain't no real name for somebody. And she said, that's a man, and that's my husband. And again, you saw her, you could see that she was starting to get her mojo back. But then just as soon as she started getting her mojo back, he would say something or he would do something that would trigger her, and you would see her face go right back into it. And finally she was like, "Get the hell out of my house." And while they're arguing, you can hear somebody pulling up, and I thought it was Hollywood. I said, "Uh oh, here come Hollywood." You can hear a car pull up. It's Nova, and she's telling him to get out of her house, get out the house. Nova walks in the door. He looks up at Nova and says, "Oh, hey, Nova." Now, my first instinct was, I don't remember how old Nova was when Jimmy Dale was last there, but I'm pretty certain she wasn't old enough for him to recognize her that quickly. And Aunt Vi must have thought the same thing, because Aunt Vi turned around and looked at her and was like, "Nova." She said, "I can explain it." As soon as she said that, I said, she done went and visited this man, and that's why he back. Because remember, everybody kept trying to figure out, why after all these years is he back now? Why after all these years? Oh, he back because your ass done went open and stirred up this can of this beehive nest or whatever. So my glasses, y'all know how when I get my new glasses, I got to figure out how to put my glasses on over these braids. Um, Nova was, and and Bob was like, "Nah." She just gave her this look like, "I don't believe this," and they got to arguing, and he got like he was gonna hit Aunt Vi, and so Nova got him out the house, pushed him out the house, and as that was going on, then Hollywood did pull up. Hollywood was like, "Didn't I tell your ass to get out of town?" And he bucked up at Hollywood like, "What you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Do your best." Well, Hollywood did. Hollywood whooped his ass. And it wasn't for the, I don't think it was for the point of Ava telling Hollywood, "You're gonna kill him," which I think that kind of was his goal. But he ended up they were able to pull him up off of him, and he walked off, and of course he spit some mess at Ava as he was walking off, talking about some, "You were a good piece. I shouldn't have tried." Basically, he said, "I shouldn't have tried to make a hoe a housewife," is what he tried to say. And Hollywood was about to go get him again, but Ava was like, "Look, just let him go. Let him go." So they back in the house, and they wrapping up Hollywood's hand, and Nova's explaining that she went to go visit him because she wanted to get his. And Hollywood did the smartest thing he could do. He ain't say a damn thing. He let the two of them handle that thing. But she said, "I wanted to get his side of the story," which would have pissed me off if I was her aunt. It would have pissed me off because what it would have said to me was, "So you didn't believe me?" And I understand that you're writing a book, but what, you didn't believe me? You thought I lied? You thought I exaggerated? She said, "But as soon as I talked to him, I realized that he was everything you said he was." Yeah. And that's why I didn't include his side of the story in the book. Ava said, and I know y'all have seen the clip. She said, "You've done some things in your life." She said, "But this right here, your father will be ashamed of you." And she did that Denzel, that one tear trickle down her face, that one tear. She said, And I'm going to do you like your mama would do you. Get out of my house. I'll never want to see you again. She said, the way I feel right now, if I never see you again. She said, don't even come to my grave site. Don't bring me no flowers. Get out my house and don't ever darken it again. And again, remember I was saying earlier about the acting that you could see it in their face without them saying a word? Nova's face said it. She said, ain't Vi. And Vi was like, get out my house. And as Nova was walking away, I'm sure it hurt when Rod did it. It hurt when Charlie did it. But with Ain't Vi, you could see as she walked off, you could just see the look on her face. And again, you don't have nobody to blame but yourself, boo. At the very least, the conversation should have been had with your family. At the very least. I mean, you shouldn't have done it. But at the very least, they shouldn't be finding out the way they finding out that you put all their business out for the world to read. All their business. And again, I don't understand what justification she's making in her mind that it was okay for her to tell everybody else's story. Again, you tell your story as you tell other people's story as it connects to you. But all this stuff you talking, and then she said, "Well, I just wanted the world to know how strong of a woman you were." But that little excerpt that they read out loud, that didn't sound to me like you were talking about how strong she was. Talking about she'd been broken so many times by Jimmy. Like I'm like, really? It just doesn't. It doesn't sound like you're writing a love letter to your family. It sounds like you're judging your family. Is what it sounds like to me. Anyway, I talked long enough. It went long, but it was a good episode, y'all. Y'all drop it in the comments, please.